Good morning, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Saturday session, Unlock Your Charisma, Break Career Ceiling. Joining us today, we have Joe Kwong. What inspired me to invite Joe to our session? Because I had this question in my mind. Do Asians lack the charisma to lead? And this is something I was always wondering, that whenever I see the panel speakers from a large conference, get to see the board member faces, majority of that would be Caucasian men. So researchers found that Asians are seen as having less charisma when compared to their white counterparts, a trait that's often synonymous with leadership in Western societies. When I said that, my husband, he was like, oh, that's a very strong statement. So what we want to inspire is free talking, right, in this forum. So you can also ask the question in the chat box. So when it comes to the top level management, the ideal leader is someone who's actually charismatic, who is masculine, who is in control of his or her destiny. Whereas for mid-level managers, the perception is more in line with the competent leader prototype. That's why Asians are technically competent, but somehow not qualified for the top jobs. So the idea is that if Asians are perceived as competent, they might be viewed as more in line with mid-level and the lower level management positions. So that's why we got Joe to talk with us about unlock your charisma, break your career ceiling. So you can agree with that or you disagree. So put your question out there for this session and we'll do Q&A in the end. Joe is one of the most engaging presenters you will ever see. His unique insights will captivate your audience and promote immediate action to accelerate their personal and professional growth. It sounds simple to have charisma, but it's not easy. So let's get going. Joe is a security lawyer, associate director working at KPMG Global Privacy and Information Management Office. He graduated from Georgetown University Law Center with JD. With that, let's welcome Joe Kwong to introduce himself and provide us the speech.
Thanks, May. Wonderful, wonderful introduction. And thank you. Now I have to live up to it. So really excited to be here today with all of you and have this opportunity. I was just telling May and Scott, how I thought this was such a wonderful thing that all of you are part of and participating in. And I think it's really a model for other groups to follow in terms of connection and just excellence. So congratulations to all of you for participating and trying to improve yourselves and help each other in this forum. So the first thing I'm going to ask you today is, do you ever get angry? Like you're so angry, like in the movie Kill Bill, where Uma Thurman literally like sees red and the horns are going off. Bah, bah, bah. I mean, do you ever get angry? I mean, I know I do. If you live in a society where you're around other people, it's going to happen from time to time, right? You're going to get angry. And that's okay. It's going to happen. But you know what makes me the most angry? I get the most angry at myself when I do something that's totally not the right thing and then I realize later, right? It's like your parents gave you advice since you were a child and you ignored it, and then you turn 40 and you're like, oh my gosh, it's so much better this way. Or you knew you should have trusted your gut and do something, but you did the other thing because you felt pressured into it by your friends or family, and then you suffered. Or maybe you knew you shouldn't do something and then you did and you're like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. And then you regretted that decision. Here's the great thing about that sort of thing. When it's something that we're doing, a mistake that we're making, it's much more easily correctable, right? Because it's entirely within your control. So charisma is the topic today, and it's about unlocking your charisma. So the way I think about all the concepts that I teach is you don't have to be given charisma, right? It's not a gift. It's not something you can give someone money and they can give to you. Charisma exists inside you already, and we'll explain a little bit more about that in a few moments, but it's inside you already. But sometimes it's kind of locked, right? Because we're focusing on other things or we don't realize it, right? You could have the most beautiful car in your garage, whatever your dream car is, but if the garage is locked, you're not going to get to drive it, right? If you don't have the code, you don't have the keys, the car's really nice to look at, but you can't really enjoy it in the way it's meant to be enjoyed, and other people can't get any benefit because it's locked inside the garage. So think about charisma. It's already inside you. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about a different perspective on what it is. And by the end of today, I will have taught you how to unlock it because you'll have a better perception. So first, let's talk about why charisma is such a difficult topic, right? Why don't more people have charisma? And when people think about charisma, why is it so difficult to understand what it is? Think about the most charismatic person you know. All right, could be someone you know personally, could be someone that you admire from afar, like on films or a famous person. So I really want you to think about someone like, man, that person is so charismatic. They make me like feel like I just want to, if I met them, I would just be like, oh, this would be amazing. So I really want you to think about that person. And the reason why I want you to do that is when we talk about how charisma actually works, I want you to compare what I'm saying against what's happening with that person. I want you to make it real. What I don't want to do is talk a lot about a lot of theory and then it's not attached to anything. So I really want you to think about, okay, I find this person in my family, in my life, at work, charismatic. Is what Joe's saying what I'm experiencing, and could it possibly be what they're actually doing to be so charismatic? So that will help you get the most out of this presentation. As you'll see, I don't have any slides. I don't really like slides because people get distracted. They start reading the slides and they're not listening anymore. So imagine you go up to that person who is the most charismatic person in your life, or you have the opportunity to talk to them and you say, man, or it could be a woman, you're so charismatic. How are you so charismatic? What is it that you do? What do you think they would tell you? Do you think they'd really have a good answer and hand something to you that you can write down on the back of a napkin and all of a sudden, bam, you are charismatic, right? Do you think that would happen? I'm guessing most of you are shaking your head no. They'd have a couple answers. They'd have answers like, I don't know, I'm just me. Not helpful because I'm not you. They might say, oh, I listen really well. Also not helpful. Maybe you listen well already, but you're not charismatic, right? People don't feel the same way about you as they feel about that person. So it's kind of the same thing when you kind of look for advice on charisma. It's a lot of checklists, like make eye contact, listen well, active listening. The truth about all those lists is they actually don't teach you how the charisma is being generated, right? They show you the outward manifestations of the charisma, but they don't show you what's really going on. So apologies for those of you who aren't into sports, but I'll use a sports analogy. If you look at the best, let's say football, soccer player in the world, and you say, what makes them so great, right? And you write, oh, look, they're fast, or they're left-footed, right? They kick with their left foot. or something like that. And you write down all these notes, you know, what makes them so great. And someone hands you those notes, right? And then you go out and you try to compete at the World Cup. You know what makes them great. Are you all of a sudden going to become Ronaldinho or, you know, Messi? No, you're not. It does not matter, because those are just things that they kind of manifest, but that's not the actual thing that makes them an amazing footballer, right? There are things internally, and there are things that they have done that have gotten to them to that point. And it's the same way with charisma. No one can hand you a simple formula or a list. You can't replicate it. And frankly, it's actually one of the worst ways to try to be charismatic is to think about being charismatic, right? You ever try to be friends with someone? That doesn't work well. They're like, oh, why are you trying so hard? Are you going to sell me something or eat me? You know, they're like, this is not natural, right? You are not responding in the natural way of human beings, right? You should relax and just be yourself and let things take their due course. So it's the same way with charisma. If someone gives you a list, throw it out. That list is not helpful in terms of being charisma. You have to be a certain way, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, what that is. And that's what delivers charisma, because it's you, right? It's you being you. It's not you being what someone else told you to be. But here's the trick. You have to know how to be, and no one has really told you how to be yet. So we're going to go over that right now. So if you had to define charisma or look up charisma, what you would find is something about like a special magnetic charm or appeal, and it gives you kind of like the effect of charisma. But again, it doesn't tell you how it's generated, and that's a big problem, because if you don't know how something works, you can't get more of it, right? So here's the definition I came up with for charisma, which actually talks about how it's generated. And if you only take away one thing from the presentation today, it should be this definition. Charisma is the ability to sense and ultimately deliver exactly what is needed from an emotional perspective in a given moment. So I'm going to say that one more time. It's a bit of a long definition. Charisma is the ability to sense and ultimately deliver exactly what is needed from an emotional perspective in a given moment. So what does that mean? Let's say Scott, May, Yi, and I, we go to a conference or a party. Let's say we go to a party, right? Like a professional mixer party. And we walk in and there is just no energy in the room, right? It's just people are not communicating. There's no activity. It's just really not a fun place to be. And, you know, I say to Scott, I say, man, Scott, this party's dead, right? Am I charismatic at that point? No, I'm not. Why? Because I've sensed what's needed at the party, which is some energy, some fun, some engagement, but I haven't delivered it. I haven't done anything about it, right? I'm just a very observant kind of person, and probably there's other people in the room that are observant as well. But notice, no one is doing anything about it, right? No one's actually delivering charisma, right? Now, what if, and I'm not, but what if I was like a really good, I don't know, comedian or juggler or good dancer or DJ, and I got up there and started DJing, and all of a sudden everyone's like, hey, party, right? Now, am I charismatic? Yes, because I've delivered what people really needed, which is to relax, enjoy themselves, have fun, meet new people. I have created that, right? From my actions, and that's what makes me charismatic. Now, we have to be a little bit careful, because people often get stuck in this mental trap where they think, okay, it's all about what you do, right? So Joe's a really good DJ. So if I learn how to DJ, and I'm not, I'll be charismatic, right? That's absolutely the wrong approach. The reason why I was charismatic when I was DJing in this scenario was because I knew that that's what would work for this scenario, right? It's not the actual skill. It could have been just as easily juggling, could have been comedy, it could have been any of those things. Maybe multiple things would work. But the fact is I brought one thing that would work, and that's what made me charismatic. So let me share another example. It's a little bit more serious, to sort of drive the point home. Let's say May, Yi, Scott, and I go to the hospital, right? Good friend of ours is suffering from COVID or some sort of disease, and we're waiting to get the diagnosis from the doctors, right? We're really concerned. This is a close friend, a dear friend. They're healthy, they should be fine, but you never know, right? You never know with these, when someone's in a hospital, it's always very dicey. So as we're waiting for the doctor, right, think about our faces, think about our body language, think about the emotional state we would be in. Now, what would you think of me if I brought that same skill and I started DJing in the hospital? Or telling jokes, right? Not charismatic, because it's not what's emotionally needed in this moment. Ask yourself who or what type of person would be charismatic in this moment? What's the skill or the way of being is maybe a better way of putting it, that would be needed in this scenario, right? So you're probably thinking, well, it'd be really great to have maybe some senior family member, some senior statesman, maybe if you're religious, like a religious leader, someone who has the way about them and the ability to comfort people, right? And say, look, no matter what, we're going to get through this together. We're going to be there for our friend. We're going to be there for each other. Let's just hold hands, we're in this together, right? And just have everyone just be like, right? And just kind of bring that peace and calm to the situation. And ask yourself, why is that person charismatic? They don't know how to DJ, right? They're not good at telling jokes, right? They're not really attractive or good looking like a lot of charismatic people. Why am I so drawn to them, right? Why do I want to call them next time I have a problem? Why are they the first person I think of to call, right? It's because they've delivered that emotional thing that I needed most in that moment, right? So when you start to think about charisma like this, you realize two things. One, charisma is powerful not just because people gravitate towards you, or because it gives you more opportunities, which it does, right? If more people want you to be around and invite you, it's powerful because of this really meaningful, valuable connection that you create with the other person, right? It creates this bond, and it's true even if you don't know the person, right? Let's say you find some, let's say it's an actress, really charismatic, and you'll never really meet her in your life, but what she delivers to you is this inspiration, this motivation, her life story, her way of conducting herself through adversity. That is something that, through the way she is and the way she acts and the way she carries herself in life, the way they report about her, it gives you something you need, right? So when you're down and you need some inspiration, what do? You watch one of their movies, or if it's like, I don't know, Taylor Swift or, a singer, you listen to their music, right? And you get that inspiration. That's what makes the person charismatic. It's not that they can sing well. It's not that they can act well. It's that connection between the two of you. And that brings me to a really important point about charisma that I want you to understand. You're over there on your side of the screen, and I'm here in my house in New Jersey. where is the charisma? If you're feeling I'm charismatic, where is the charisma, right? The charisma is not inside me, and the charisma is not inside you. It's in that space between you and me, right? It's on the internet, right? It's that signal passing between you and me. That's where the charisma lives, which is why I can be charismatic to you, and then your brother or sister or cousin sitting right next to you, listening to the same thing, seeing the same thing, can see me and say, man, that guy Joe, he's a fake. He talks too much. He doesn't have enough hair. You know, like I'm doing the same exact thing, right? But honestly, I'm charismatic to you, but I'm not charismatic to them. And that's okay. That's the way it's supposed to be, because the charisma is the connection between the two of us, and no connection between different people is exactly the same, right? So your cousin or your sister or brother is going to perceive what I'm doing just slightly differently, right? It's impossible for them to perceive it exactly the same. So people who are the most charismatic are the ones who are able to act in a way that it's more common that people get what they need and feel like, wow, this person's really amazing, than not, right? If you can only do that for one person, like your mom is like, Hercules, Hercules, but everyone else is like, man, this person's lame, you won't have very powerful charisma with anyone except your mom, which is wonderful, but not particularly helpful from a career or other perspective, right? So the ability to be charismatic with many different people, not just at once, but many different people. So are you charismatic with your boss? Are you charismatic with your friends? Are you charismatic with your children even, right? We always think about our spouse or partner, but what about our children, right? Are you the type of parent that your children come to you and say, Mom, Dad, I need your help. You're the only one who can help me with this. Well, that doesn't come from you being smart or earning a lot of money. It comes from them feeling this deep emotional connection with you. That, you know what, when I need something, my parent gives that to me and I feel better after talking to them. That is the power of charisma. And I hope you can start to see this is why charisma is so important for your career. And to say that Asians don't have charisma is ludicrous, because black, white, whatever color you are, we all have charisma. What I would say is perhaps there's less of an emphasis about charisma in Asian culture, right? Because of our Confucian background, because of a certain hierarchical thing, humility, different cultural norms. It is not really encouraged, or it is not embraced, maybe the same as it is in a more pure kind of Western culture. It's not right or wrong. It is what it is, right? But my point being is you can have as much charisma as you want to have, because it's already there. It's already inside you. So let me talk about now practically, right? Hopefully you understand the theory now. Hopefully you're like, okay, I definitely want charisma. Okay, Joe, how do I actually get charisma, right? Because if you don't understand how to get it, it's my own point. It's not going to be helpful to you, right? So let's go back to the definition. Charisma is the ability to sense and ultimately deliver exactly what is needed from an emotional perspective in a given moment. So let's break down the first part. How do you sense what someone needs emotionally, right? How do you sense? Because if you don't sense it, think back to the boring party, right? If you don't sense what's needed by people, you won't engage in the right delivery of what's needed. So there's a few things we can do in terms of sensing what's needed. And I like to call this calm, cool, and connected, all right? So calm means if you think about like when, let's say you're walking along and like a rabid raccoon jumps out at you, right? And then you get that like fight or flight mechanism, right? So when you are in that kind of charged, anxious, attacked mode, your body does something to help you, right? Which is it narrows your focus like a laser beam, right, on just exactly what's in front of you, and you lose all sense of nuance, right? You don't want to know what, kind of breed the raccoon is or whether it's pregnant or not. Like your mind is just like raccoon, like right here, It's like boom, you're not picking up the fur pattern so you can identify it later. Your mind, all of that is out the window. You were just like raccoon, fear, right? So when our mind is in that mode, when you enter a situation, let's say at work, and you're very tense and nervous, and you got that whole fight or flight thing going on, you can't sense what's going on because it's impossible for your mind to sense what's going on. So you have to be able to relax, right? You have to, and I won't get into the whole like how to relax. We don't have enough time for that today. I just want you to get the overview. But conceptually, hopefully you can see when you're relaxed, you can perceive much more subtly what's going on. Like, oh, that person, normally they look really buttoned up, but they look a little bit unkempt today. Maybe something's going on with them, or normally, they're smiling, all the time, but today their smile looks a little bit fake, You don't notice those things when you are in fight or flight mode. So that's number one, to be calm. Number two is to be cool. And by cool, I mean staying exactly where you are in the moment, no matter what happens, right? And I like to use the analogy of time travel. I'm not going to ask you to meditate. I meditate, but I'm not going to ask you or demand that you do that. I know some people aren't into that. What does work is you have to stay in that moment between you and that person. You can't be thinking about what's on your Netflix queue. You can't be thinking about the mistake you made. You can't be thinking, is there broccoli in my teeth? You have to be fully tuned in to what's going on right now, right? You can't be traveling in time to future anxieties and past mistakes. It's like, I have this moment right now in front of me with this person, and that's it, right? And again, that also allows you to sense in a very powerful way, is the energy moving up? Is the energy moving down, right? Are they leaning in because they're like, wow, they're at the edge of their seats. They're like, what you're saying is really good. Or are they leaning back and rolling their eyes, right? If you're wondering, what you're going to make for dinner or where you're going to go on vacation, you're going to miss a lot of these cues, right? So that's the second thing about sensing. You have to be cool and dialed in. And the last thing is you really need to be connected to the person, right? You really have to almost like, I like to use the metaphor, it's like gears, right? So let's say they're a gear and you're a gear. If you're not connected, your gear can turn all you want. What does their gear do? Nothing. Let's say their gear is turning really fast and your gear is over here. What does your gear care? Your gear doesn't matter, right? When your gears are connected, when their gear turns, your gear turns. When your gear turns, their gear turns at the same speed. So you can sense what is going on with that person emotionally because you're connected, but you can't when you're disconnected. So those are the, I'd love to go into more detail, but just for the sake of getting through the second part, those are the three. Calm, you got to relax. Cool, which is just my way of saying, be right there with them and not anywhere else. Don't go into the past or the future. And connected, right? Be like gears, right? So any change in them, you notice, and it also works the other way. When you change, they'll notice, but that only happens when you're connected. Okay, so now we've sensed what's going on, but again, it's like we're at that party and I'm just like, this is a dead party, right? Like, how do we deliver, right? And then this is where people get tripped up a little bit, right? Because they think delivery and they think, oh, I got to work on my public speaking, or I got to dress better, or I got to have like good military posture, right? That's not the key. Those things are helpful as a manifestation, but they are not the actual thing that helps you deliver emotional, whatever the emotional need is. So think about that just for a moment. Like, how do you deliver what someone needs emotionally? Right? Just think about that in your own life, right? With if you have kids, with your parents, with your coworkers, with your friends. Think about times where you've really been able to deliver what they need emotionally. And what does that mean? And think about that in terms of that person who is so charismatic for you that I mentioned at the beginning. How did they do that? Right? Like what was the mechanism by which they delivered something emotionally to you? It's not an easy thing to comprehend or think about, which I think is why charisma is elusive still to so many of us until it becomes part of our traits. It's like once you understand it and you practice it over and over again, you don't have to try anymore. It becomes effortless. But we have to understand what's going on first, unless we're just really lucky and intuitively we've already understood that as a human being. Most people, don't feel bad, including myself, are not that way, right? Like you got to have someone kind of like boom, hit you on the head and say, hey, this is what it really is. So I use this example to show one way to deliver sort of something emotional, right? So if everyone watched the Game of Thrones, right? Love Game of Thrones. Don't spoil it for me. I haven't seen the last season, last episode. But you know the character, the Mountain, right? Really big, fearsome warrior. And then there's Arya Stark, tiny little, I mean, she's dangerous, but tiny little from a physical perspective, right? And think about if I asked Arya to hold the mountain's hand and pull him forward, to move the mountain. And my direction to the mountain was, you don't have to go anywhere if you don't want to, right? How would that work, right? How would Arya do, right? That would not work so well for Arya without some trick or superpowers or magic, right? Think about the mountain as your kind of normal state, your resistance to change, right? When people are in a certain emotional state, they don't easily want to change. They just kind of want to stay there, you know? And Arya is like willpower to change, either that person's willpower or maybe some external kind of willpower you're trying to stimulate into them, right? That resistance to change is almost always more powerful than the will to change, the motivation to change. But you may be saying, hey, Joe, people change all the time. That's not exactly right. And you've changed, right? You've overcome that resistance to change, which is why you are where you are today, right? So the key is, the secret is, imagine I ask the mountain to stand up on his tippy toes, like a Russian ballerina, you know, like when they do the point technique, say, stand up on your tippy toes. And now I say to Arya, pull the mountain towards you. What do you think happens, right? Hopefully Arya doesn't get crushed, but the mountain topples forward, right? Why? Because he's got a different balance point. He's been lifted up, and the stability that he had before when he was flat-footed no longer exists. And that standing up on the tippy toes is emotion, right? You cannot logically argue a person into changing how they feel. It's not possible. It doesn't work. If anything, it entrenches them in the way they feel because you're pushing them and convincing them and making them feel stupid, like, oh, you know, you shouldn't feel that way. That is exactly the wrong approach, right? It's emotion. It's connecting with emotion and lifting their emotion that allows them to move and overcome the resistance to change. So that's one of the first mechanisms. It's called lift. The second mechanism is called lead, right? So the two mechanisms are two L's, lift and lead. And what I mean by lead is, excuse me, I'm gonna mute for a second so you don't hear me cough. If there's something that you know that the person is really fond of or really inspires them, right? And you kind of lead them with it, they automatically want to go towards that thing, right? So let's say I'm just going to use kids for an example because it's easier. Let's say you have a kid who is really into skiing, right? And you don't really care about their skiing that much. You don't think they're going to become an Olympian or something. And you are more cared about their education, and you want them to go to like Harvard, right? So your kid, smart kid, they could get into Harvard, but they don't care, right? They'd rather go to, I don't know, University of Colorado or someplace where there's, where they perceive there's a lot more skiing and, opportunity to be on a ski team. Imagine you try to convince your kid to go to Harvard by talking about, oh, your uncle went there and they have really good programs and their medical program's the best and their law school's the best and the facilities are amazing. It's a historical institution. It'll help your job career. And your kid is just like, whatever, right? I'm a skier. I'm not, you want me to do that. I want to ski, right? So I think you can all sort of picture how that conversation would go, and it'd be frustrating and you'd be upset and you'd be like, oh, I wish my kid would just listen, right? Let's flip that though. Let's flip that approach. Imagine, and I'm not sure they do, but imagine Harvard has one of the best skiing teams in America. Imagine they send more Olympians, and your kid's not going to go to the Olympics, all right? I mean, they're just, they're a good skier, but they're not, an Olympic level skier, but they have that aspiration, and that's wonderful, right? Imagine you say Harvard, and this is true. I mean, imagine this is true. I'm using a hypothetical. Imagine last year Harvard sent more of their former students to the Olympics than Colorado, than any other school with a big name ski program. Imagine you tell your kid, son, daughter, whoever, that. Think about how that conversation goes, right? They may not throw away all their other options, but then now they're like, wow, never thought about Harvard, right? Maybe they start looking at the application, right? Why? Because you're charismatic. You're sensing what they need, which is to pursue their life passion of being a great skier. And you're using that, and I don't mean use like in a manipulative sort of way, because they're going to a great program if they go there, right? But you're leveraging that and that understanding of what's really important to them to lead them in a direction that you think is also good, which is to get the great skiing plus the great education, right? So that's the power of leading. And the last thing I'll say before I open it up to Q&A is there's one final way we can change people's emotions, and I highly recommend you don't use it ever unless there's like immediate physical danger. And that is, if you think about, like Star Wars, when Darth Vader does the thing, the choke, and they go, it's force, not the force, but like using force to get people to change their emotional state. Just to be clear, what you're doing is you're not actually forcing them to change. You're applying so much negativity on them that they decide to change rather than bear this pressure anymore. They are still deciding to change. Like, you can't actually make someone do anything. They are deciding, but because they just want you to go away and they want the pressure to go away, not because you're leading them to something good, not because they feel emotionally better about it or different. It's because you're applying so much negative energy. They're like, God, I just want you to go away, so I'm going to do it. Right? What's the downside of that? Right? Are they going to continue to do what you want them to do? Are they going to continue to feel good about you when you leave the room? No, they're going to sabotage whatever it is. They're going to think negatively about you. They're going to passive aggressively resist you in other areas that they would have been glad to do before. They're going to sabotage your career, right? Never, ever, ever use force unless there's an immediate physical harm to a person, right? If your child is about to run into the street and there's an 18-wheeler coming down, Do you go, oh, honey, can you come back here? It's very dangerous. Don't run in the street. No, you grab that kid and you yank them back. Oh, you broke their arm or you hurt them or you scared them. You know what? But they're alive, right? Because there was an immediate physical danger. That's when you may have to use force, but in general, it's a losing tactic. You may win, but ultimately you still lose. So hopefully this has been important, and I've connected some of the dots together for you, what charisma is, how it works, and just to put a final point on it, the way it helps your career is when you connect with people in this way, they want to work more with you. They want to include you on things. They want your opinion. They want you around. And that's the power of unlocking your charisma. And final point, you got it. You don't have to pay anyone, go anywhere, do anything to get it. You have it inside you. You just have to understand it and start to practice it. So thank you. I'll hand it over to May.
Wow, thank you, Joe. I think this is great. This is what we needed to understand really what charisma is, to sense and deliver what's needed from emotional perspective in a moment. And then also the 3 C's, connection, calm, and core. And I'm going to read some of the Q&As from the audience here.
Yep, happy to answer. What do we got?
So Jason said, great insights, Joe. I feel there's a fine line between being charismatic and unauthentic. I feel some tried to be charismatic, but it showed.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. Really, really great observation. And obviously, I'm not in the room when you're experiencing that, but my guess would be, based on what I've learned about this, is they were trying to do something or be something, and they were doing it with the agenda of, okay, I want to succeed. They were not doing it as a natural response to what was needed in the room, and they weren't relaxed about it, right? You can tell when, like I said before, you can tell when someone's trying to be your friend or trying to sell you something versus, man, this person just kind of really wants to help me and they're like a good person and this is what they are, right? So that's generally what's happening, and that happens all the time because people get these lists and say, oh, you got to make eye contact, you got to, I don't know, speak last or whatever, and that's so transparent. Don't do that. People can see through that. Just relax, understand what's needed, deliver with your authentic skill sets, right? If you don't know how to DJ, don't volunteer to DJ, right? Tell a joke or do something that you're actually good at that people enjoy you doing, right? You don't have to be someone else to be charismatic. You actually, it's better that you be you, the best version of you.
Oh,
thanks, Jason.
Thank you. The next question is, how do you sense and deliver in front of a hall of people all over the media so that you're not able to see the audience?
Yeah, great question, Yi. And I think the way you do that, and that's a challenging thing, you have to really, 2 things that really help with that. One, you have to really understand who is out there, like who the audience is, and kind of the main things that emotionally they're about and that they need and that they can tie into. And then the second thing is you have to bring like your pure passion to it, because people can sense that coming through the screen versus, I've done some podcasts where people were like reading a script, like I asked them a question and they're like, the emotional blah, 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 blah. No passion, right? Nobody feels that. So you really have to bring that even more so when you're not physically in a room with a person. And the last point I'll make, you, because this is such a great question, you don't have to be charismatic to everybody, right? That's not possible. There's always going to be 5%, 10%, 15% of people who are like, you're a jerk, or you're dumb, or I don't like what you have to say, or I don't like the cut of your jib, your chin or whatever. You just have to let that go, right? It's the 80 to 85% that you're really going to help, that you have to concentrate on, and they're your audience. The haters are not your audience. Because you know what? It's not about you. They kind of just hate themselves, so they hate everybody else. So whether it's you, whether it's May, whether it's me, whether it's Yi, whether it's Scott, you know, they're going to hate the person, right? So you just got to let that go, because if you try to please everyone, you please no one. So find your audience, and be passionate.
Oh, yeah, that also comes to another question, but I'm going to read the other one Angela has later about not be friends with everyone. So Jason has a question. In addition to the 3 C's, core, calm, and connected, he suggested to add the 4 C, confident. How does that sound like?
Yeah, I think confidence is definitely key to being charismatic. And the reason I would say confidence is definitely good, I would put confidence more in the delivery, actually helpful in the delivery. And the reason why I say that is I read a great definition about confidence written by these 2 women who wrote the Confidence Code. And they were actually researching confidence in high performing women. But you know, everything that they learned applies to men as well, because it's confidence, right? It's not a masculine or feminine thing. And what they found out was this great definition. And their definition of confidence is purity of action produced by a mind free of doubt. I mean, I love that definition. Confidence is purity of action produced by a mind free of doubt, right? Does that mean you're the best person for the job or the best expert? No, not necessarily. But it gives you an advantage because you are not hesitating, right? Based on the expertise you have at the given moment and the skill set, you're like, you know what? I believe this is the best thing to do. And then you just do it purely. You know, you don't halfway do it. You're just like, you know what? This is what needs to happen. Boom. And you do it. And everyone kind of recognizes, like, wow, you know, this person really feels what they're doing is the right thing to do. That is the power of confidence. So I'm so glad you brought that up. I think it, you know, helps all over. I would slot it more with the delivery, because as you deliver, you know, you definitely want to be confident about it. But yes, confidence is a huge part of charisma, Jason. So thank you for that observation.
So I'm going to read Angela's question first.
Sure.
Asians, particularly, you know, women, tended to be more attentive to others' feelings, care too much about others, and they neglect themselves. How to differentiate this from charisma?
Okay, I hadn't thought about this, Angela. So let me consider this for a second. So you're saying women, and you know, my wife falls into this category. She pays so much attention to me and my son. Sometimes you wish that they would do more for themselves. How to differentiate this from charisma? Well, I guess I would take a different spin on it. I'm not sure I would say you can differentiate it from charisma. I think the point here that maybe you're getting to is you are able to be the most charismatic, and you are the best version of yourself when you also tend to your own needs, right? Because then you have the energy, the perspective, the full power of who you are. And when you don't take time to recharge and give yourself what you need, you're like a battery, right? You have less to give others. So you have to periodically take time to fill up your battery, so then you can give some of that power to the people in your life that matter. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And if you change the perspective, right? If you think like, oh, I should always give to others first. If you just make a slight tweak and think, you know what? By taking care of myself, I am able to give my best, my highest, my utmost to others. It makes it a lot easier for you to say, you know what? You guys just take care of this today. I need 30 minutes to myself, or I'm going to watch this program, play this game, do this crossword, whatever it is that you recharge. I'm going to take this girls' vacation or girls' night out, right? Knowing that this will allow you to give better. It's not about being selfish. It's always about you taking care of yourself so you can also better take care of others. And if you make that little perception shift, you will be happier and you will be more charismatic.
Wow, sounds like this is a lot of the giving, right? You get connections about give and take.
Charisma is not about doing. Yeah, it's about giving.
Yeah. Do you deliver charisma to subordinates, your manager, leadership, everyone? How does that work out for different types of audience?
Yeah, that is a fantastic question. So where is that question? I just want to read it to make sure I understand the nuance.
May, that was your question, right?
That's E's question.
Oh,
Do you
okay.
deliver charisma
Oh,
to
okay, I see it.
subordinates?
Subordinate, superior, leadership, or strangers. How this sensing delivery mechanism works for different types of audience. Yeah, absolutely. So I want to get everyone to stop thinking about charisma as like a package you deliver, right? It's not something that I have and I can hand to you when I feel like giving it to you, right? The way really powerful charismatic people are is it's almost like they breathe it. You know, they just are that way, right? They don't have to think about it. Like imagine like you're like a catcher or like a hockey goalie. And again, I apologize for the sports analogies, but physical things always come to mind. And a ball comes flying at your head. Like you're walking in a park and someone hits a ball and boom, it goes flying right at your head or flying at like your partner or kid's head. What happens? Do you think about you're going to protect the person? No, your hand just goes out, boom, right? It's like you can't help it. It's like a reflex. It's who you are, right? That's the secret to charisma. Charisma is not something you turn on and turn off, right? You don't go into a room and decide, hey, I'm going to be charismatic right now, and that's going to help me. You know, someone else mentioned that, you know, before, people trying and it feels inauthentic. Well, that's what's happening, right? They think it's something that can be turned on. They think it's something that can be used to give a benefit to themselves. Totally the wrong perspective. Charisma is who you are as a human being. It's your template for moving through the world, you know? As you move through the world, you sense certain things just naturally. You know, after you understand this and start to live this way, you can't help but sense when someone needs something or feels a certain way. And you intuitively know what you should do and you deliver that thing to them. It's effortless, right? It's not easy. It's not easy, right? Because it's locked inside us and we have our own ego and we have our own agenda and we have all the programming from society and our parents and from our institutions and work that are saying, no, 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 no. You must make $1 or you must be successful. You must make our family proud, right? No one ever says you must help people to get what they need emotionally. It's so important that we look after our brother and our sister, not our literal brother and sister, but like our humanity brother and sister. And when you start to practice that, two things will happen. One, you will be shocked at the way people respond to you, right? All of a sudden, everything you say is going to be like a lot more interesting. Well, why wouldn't it be? You're giving the person exactly what they need emotionally. Why wouldn't you be the most interesting person in the world to them? And the other thing that'll happen is you will see it everywhere else. When you see a charismatic person and the people that are kind of gravitating around them, you'll understand. You're like, oh, yeah, it's because those people need to be reassured. That's why that person's so charismatic. Or if you see someone trying to be charismatic, like I think it might have been Jason who mentioned it, and it's not, you'll understand why. They'll say, you know what? Because they're not delivering what people need. They're following a checklist, or they're trying to do something for their own benefit. They're not giving to the other person. They're trying to take. They're using charisma as a shovel to extract, right? Charisma is more like a gift. I mean, I said it's not like something you can give to people, but in a sense, it's more like something you give to someone rather than you use it to take. You use it to give, to help someone else, and then the virtuous cycle just goes on from there. Any other questions, May?
Yeah, this is really a different perspective, because the perception is really use the charisma to do a sales pitch. So yeah, that comes to Jason's question. Is charisma a hidden criteria for job interviews? How do the interviewers sense you are not charismatic, or they don't like you and won't select you? How to be charismatic in this situation?
Yeah. Jason, lots of great questions today. So when I hear you say, a hidden criteria, I don't think there's like a piece of paper where where they secretly check like charismatic or I like the person. I'm a lawyer. HR would just kill anyone who did that. But I think as human beings, we intuitively decide whether we like someone or not, whether we'd want to work with them or not, and then we give all the reasons on top of that, right? So if I decide I like you, I take everything I heard in an interview and I put all the good things down. If I decide I don't like you, I ignore all those good things and I put the bad things down. So in that sense, it is a very powerful criterion in terms of the job interview. And if the interviewer doesn't like you, your chances of getting that job are slim to none, or they won't recommend you, at least, right? Maybe they don't have the final decision power. What I would say for interviewing, I mean, I know with everything going on, people are either interviewing or thinking they may have to interview. The number one tip I can give for interviewing, and I've experienced this myself through a lot of failure in interviewing actually, is when you go into that interview, you have to 100% see yourself in that job, want the job, already be doing the job, right? Because any sort of hesitation, there's another job that might be better, or this isn't exactly what I want, the salary's not exactly right, it's going to throw off these very subtle vibes. You're not even going to realize what it is, whether it's an eyebrow or a hesitation. Like, I can't tell you what it's going to be. You can't stop them. But that is going to throw off negative vibes that tell the interviewer, this is not my guy, this is not my gal. And that happened to me a lot when I was interviewing earlier in my career. I would interview for jobs that I thought were too high for me, but I got the interview, so I went. But during the interview, I was like, no, they shouldn't hire me. Like, I actually had that thought, like in the interview, they should hire someone else, right? You can't do that if you're trying to present your best, person forward and get the job. You have to be, you know what? They need me. I am the only person, I am the best person for this job. And then your best comes forward. And then, you know what? You can't control anyone. Let the chips fall where they may, but you have done everything you could do within your power to have a successful interview.
Wow, that was wonderful. We got so many tips on interview, on jobs, on career, on life, on parenting. Joe, you really give us a lot. Do you have an example who you are coaching right now? Do you think that people really need the coaching on connection, and then, what level that those people are?
Yeah, thanks, May, so much for asking. So I go by the name The Connection Counselor. It's because I do some coaching on the side with professionals. Sometimes I don't like to say executive coaching because then people think like, oh, if I'm not like a CEO or like, a VP, I don't deserve the coaching or it's not helpful for me. But what it really is teaching people how to use connection both to themselves as well as to others to have a more effective career. Because if you think about it, for anything successful to happen that involves more than one person, like as soon as you have two people, there has to be a connection, right? If there's no connection between the two people and you're this person and this person is not connected to you and you're saying, do this, help me, nothing happens. So whether you're a manager, whether you're a team member and you're following a manager, It doesn't matter. As long as there's more than one person involved, you have to be connected. So that's kind of what I do as my sort of side job when I'm not working at KPMG. I coach people on connections. So if you're curious, just go to my website, check it out. You can, reach out to me through email. Also, I have my book, Unlock Your Charisma, which has a lot of these principles. And I just released a new book, Unlock Your Executive Presence. And one thing I'll say about, like an example, I had a client recently who had to have a very tense meeting with the CEO. They're the general counsel for a tech firm out in the West Coast. And they were really worried, right? And they were talking about the manager and the CEO. We're talking about the CEO, and the CEO has a certain, let's say the CEO is quirky, without getting into details, right? They have a certain way of being, right? And I said, you know what? When you go in there, you have to put what you're explaining in the CEO's language, right? In the way they talk to you, you have to talk back to them. Why? So they can understand what you're saying. If you talk in your language, your lawyerly language, your feminine language, your whatever your normal way of talking is, they will not comprehend deeply what you're saying. But when you connect with them by understanding, okay, this is where they are, this is where I am, I need to form a bridge and connect, then the conversation can go much more smoothly. So she had the conversation with the CEO. She said it was a huge improvement to what she thought it was going to be, and they were listening and they understood. And if she just came in and said, this is my memo, this is why you should do it, look at these charts, it would not have ended well. So that's something we can all do for our careers, when we're trying to communicate. How do we connect with the person we're communicating with instead of it's my way and you should understand? That's a good recipe for limited success.
Hey, Joe.
Yep.
Scott, I have a verbal question.
Sure, go for it, Scott.
You said it's an elusive concept. You can practice and get better.
Yep.
So then, how charismatic am I? Is there a baseline? Is there a percentage? And then how do I know that I'm getting better? How do I benchmark? Do you address any of that?
Yeah. So the way you do it, and I don't know if I put it on my website yet, but I'll share it with the folks on the call here. I teach this thing called a charisma kata. For those of you who are into martial arts, like a kata is like a form, of like movements you do. And when I was talking before about charisma being internalized, you internalize something by doing it over and over and over again, right? Let's say you're learning how to catch a ball, right? The first time you as a kid, you try to catch a ball, you drop it, right? You're lucky if you catch it, but you catch it over and over and over, and all of a sudden you don't even think about it. Boom, you caught it, right? So with charisma, I teach this thing called charisma kata. It's called blank sheet. And it's just got a few steps. The first step is find someone that that you already have a good relationship with. Get them in a moment where you can just talk for a few moments without being interrupted, right? Not like some crazy hectic place. And just ask them, how are you feeling, right? Not how are you doing. Ask them like, how are you feeling? And if they're the person who doesn't really respond to questions, give them a statement. Hit them with a statement saying, you seem unengaged today, or you seem really happy today, or just kind of describe, what it is that you perceive for them. And then let them just talk, right? And by blank paper, I mean you're the blank piece of paper and you are not talking. Let them talk. And as they talk, the words are being written on you and you're like absorbing, right? And then as that happens, you will start to understand a little bit more. You'll start to sense what's going on with them. And the only thing you say is, tell me more, or, hey, yeah, definitely, tell me more about that. You don't really interrupt or ask questions until the paper is about half full, right? Because when it's about half full, you can really sort of see like, okay, what does this person need? Where does this conversation need to go? And then you start writing on the paper, right? Let them get their piece out, and then you write on the paper and start to ask the right questions, start to say the right things. And that is just an easy way to practice being more charismatic, and then you can extend it into more complicated situations. So that's charisma kata, blank paper. And then the other thing, you had a great question, like how do you know if you're being charismatic? So I came up with this thing called the charisma barometer, and it's 3 L's. So it's laugh, lean, and look. Okay, so the 3 L's. So when you're being charismatic, let's say you're doing charisma kata number 1, you will know it's working, right? How will you know? Number 1, I guess lean is number 1. Because that person will very subtly lean in towards you. They will start to close the physical distance between you and them, you know, as long as it's socially appropriate. But they will, we as human beings, right? Imagine you're watching a movie and the movie's so good. What do? You literally move to the edge of your seat, right? You can't help it. It's the same thing. When you're having a charismatic conversation, you lean and close the distance between the two people. The other thing that happens is people laugh. And by laugh, I don't mean it has to be a literal laugh, but it's like a lightening of the spirit. You know, like people's kind of their eyes sparkle a little bit more and their mood peps up, you know, because you're having this great, like emotionally nourishing conversation. Like, why wouldn't you laugh and feel good? So you kind of see people relax, right? So it's lean, laugh. And then this last one's my favorite, right? It's called the lift or the look, sorry, the look. Last one's called the look. So what'll happen is, and I've seen this is crazy. You'll see it. It's crazy. As you break off the conversation, if it has been charismatic and you've seen those, you know, kind of first 2 symptoms or signs already, as they leave, the person will look kind of up to the corner. I can't remember whether it's the left or right, but it's always the same side. And they'll look. It's almost like they're reflecting on what they just experienced, and then they'll go. They'll actually like bob their head a little bit, right? You know, like when you have like a really tremendous dessert or meal or a sip of wine or something, and you finish it and you're like, right? You do that little head bob, right? It's the same thing. It's like the emotional equivalent of like an amazing meal, you know, because you had this amazing experience, this conversation with the person, and the reason why they do that is because it's amazing because it doesn't happen very often. Nobody really nourishes them emotionally on a daily basis. You have just given them a wonderful gift of a nourishing emotional connection. And that's why as they leave, you'll see their eyes look up and they'll like reflect on it like, wow. Just like you think, wow, that steak was so good, or that, you know, whatever was so good. And you'll go, So yeah, I've seen it happen for myself. It's crazy. It totally works. I mean, it totally happens. It's not something you do. It totally happens. You experience it.
All right, great. So that's some of the detail. There's a slide on the screen, but if people can't see the slide, if they're interested in the book or learning more of the detail, you want to recite some of your contact information right now, Joe?
Yeah, sure. You can reach me at www.joequanjo.com. The same site is also www.onewordconnectioncounselor.com. You can find my books on Amazon. I have one book on charisma that's on Audible if you prefer audiobooks. And you can email me anytime at joe@connectioncounselor.com. And my phone number is also there if you need to reach out and discuss. It's 201-675-3585. And I just hope all of you continue to attend these meetings. I think they're fantastic. I mean, you may have to keep inviting me. I may have to attend just to learn as well, because I think this is fantastic. And I wish you all the best during these trying times.
Thank you so much, Joe, for participating in today's session. You just delivered this dessert, you know, chocolate, my favorite dessert that I experienced, to all of us.
Thank you.
And also I wanted to thank all the audience getting on the call, taking the time, learning about charisma. I hope everybody can understand it and unlock your charisma and break the bamboo ceiling. And also there's some feedback for Joe. Actually, Jessie said she's ordering the books now. What a wonderful session. Such a great session from Jason.
Maybe we might have to have affiliate links, May, if people are going to start ordering and spending money related to our venture.
Yeah.
I like the way you think, Scott. I like the way you think.
Yeah. So for those ones, yeah, I actually think, Joe, right? Joe's session is great. And go to Joe's website. And I can look at all the content. It's all free. There's also video. There's good TV, movie. There's a very good suggestion. And then also, all the things that you can learn for free. And then Joe's book is like less than like $3, right, Joe? Was the audio version.
The audio version's on Audible. You can just get the credit. My new book, Executive Presence, $2.99. I reduced the price for this week for you guys. Also, Unlock Your Charisma, I reduced it from $9.99 to $4.99. Also for you guys. And then what was the other thing? I have a podcast, Why It Works. You can find it on any sort of normal Spotify, Apple Podcast, Stitcher. It teaches you different principles. It's not me, it's a guest, and I facilitate. And so they'll teach you anything from how to deal with sales, how to deal with trauma, how to deal with performance reviews. I just did one on innovation communication, so how to communicate innovation. So it's a real fun kind of way. We use movies and TV show clips as a discussion point. It's a lot of fun. It's about an hour. It goes by really quick, and all my guests have really enjoyed the format. So I encourage you to take a listen to continue the learning. Totally free. And if you want to sort of donate, go to my website. I have like a little tip jar you can donate. That's totally cool, but there's no expectations. So.
Well, thank you, Joe. Thank you, everybody. Let's all get connected. Let's get connected with Joe on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and then also go to the website. And then let's just keep learning. With that, I'm gonna, wish everybody stay safe and be healthy. Thank you, Joe, for coming to our community, and then also thank you everybody for joining this session today.